Get ready, folks, because today we're going to be starting a new wrestling card set video series. No, these aren't cards from a low-rent indie fed, and no, these aren't cards from a promotion ran by the notorious Jack Pfeffer, but a world-renowned card set featuring such wrestling superstars as Ric Flair, Greg Allen, Sly Stallone cosplaying as Muhammad Ali. This can't be right. What's up, everybody? I'm Zhan, and this is Wrestling with Cards. Thanks for stopping by to check out another episode. Have you ever seen a movie, a TV show, maybe a wrestling angle, maybe a wrestling storyline? Something in the wrestling world that's just very campy? Something so terrible that it was entertaining and actually good. Well, that's exactly what this wrestling card set is. The now infamous Monty Gum wrestling cards, produced in 1986 by the Monty Gum Company out of Holland. Monty Gum also produced cards for such properties as Star Wars, Kiss, and Elvis. These came in both packs and boxes. These cards came in a longer strip, and you would have to cut them apart. That's why a lot of times when you see these in slabs, they will say hand cut, even if they're a PSA 10 or a 9. That hand cut means that they had cut those apart. However, there are still nubs around the outsides of the cards where they're cut apart, similar to like a perforated card. So just something to keep in mind if you're wanting to grade these cards. I have an example here with this Road Warriors card. You can see it's a PSA 10, and you can see there's a little nub here and one down here. And that's what I'm talking about by them grading those nubs as part of the PSA 10 grade. So just an example. There are several things that are really great about this wrestling card set. The first being that it has tons of superstars that were at the top of their game and very popular at the time they were printed, 1986. But not only that, they are representing multiple companies within the same card set at the same time, something unheard of. For those of you who grew up in the territory days, this is the card set for you, representing different territories and the top stars. You've got the WWF, you've got Portland, you've got NWA, you've got World Class, Memphis. You can't get any better than that. Like I said, it's something you just rarely see. We do see this with a lot of Japanese cards. The BBM cards are notorious for putting multiple promotions and multiple wrestlers from those promotions into their set. That being said, in America, we're not getting a lot of these releases. Probably why they did this, coming out of Holland. If anybody tried to do this in the United States, Vince McMahon would probably put the kibosh on it.
No, definitely not.
I'm pretty sure that they had zero clearance to do this from a copyright perspective. The names, the images, the rights to use the pictures, a lot of that probably didn't get cleared, and that's probably why we see a lot of infamous error cards. And I say error because you'll see as we go through these cards, and as I said at the top, you've got guys like Ric Flair, Greg Allen. I mean, those are household names, right? And so many of these cards are so bad they're good. And we'll get into those as we go through these videos. But before we jump into the cards, just a few ways you can support the show. Make sure to check out my podcast, Wrestling with Cards. Same name as this. It's an audio companion to these videos. So a lot of times I'll do some audio stuff that I'm not doing over here and talk about some of the videos, give different perspectives. Maybe I change my mind, etc. While you're talking about podcasts and while you're looking for wrestling podcasts, make sure to check out Worlds Collide. Myself and Tony Vella from WrestlingTradingCards.com. Two YouTube wrestling card personalities coming together to talk all things wrestling cards. Make sure to share and subscribe. That's the best way to get the word out on these podcasts. Unlike YouTube, a lot of these podcast platforms don't push out your podcast to people who would want to normally hear them. And if you really want to help out support the show, check out the links below to Patreon, where you can help contribute to the show monetarily. And you can also buy me a coffee if you want, because hey, I gotta stay caffeinated. Now let's get into the wild world that is the 1986 Monty Gum Wrestling Stars wrestling card set. Card number 1 in this set, and before we go any further, I just want to show you there's nothing on the back of these. They're just blank. So no wrestler bios, nothing like that. So you get to listen to me tell you a little bit about these guys. Card number 1, Rip Rogers. This is his rookie card. He's a journeyman wrestler that's pretty much been anywhere and everywhere, worked for all the major wrestling companies. I always thought he had a great pro wrestling look. The beard with the bleached hair and the pink outfit. Very easily hateable, but a good in-ring worker. So a good heel, good carpenter, so to speak. You could put him in there with anybody. Rip's one of those guys that I just always love watching his matches, but I just don't know if I can see him being cardboard relevant. That's the word I like to use. Stole that from Cage from the Lucas Tigers and Bronze podcast. But anyway, I just don't see him getting the love he deserves. He's also been involved with training wrestlers for years now, including names such as John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Batista, and Randy Orton. Oh, what do you know? Those are the big four rookie cards in the 2002 Flair Royal Rumble set. So we'll have to see where Rip Rogers goes from there, and we really have him to thank for those four in training. Card number 2, Chris Adams, Gentleman Chris Adams. This card looks like the shot was from the world-class like Texas Stadium Star Wars shows or Cotton Bowl or one of those major cards that World Class always promoted. Always dug Chris Adams. I love the picture here because, like I said, it does remind me of those big stadium shows that World Class used to promote. And I kind of look at this card as somewhat of a time capsule with how big wrestling used to be, that, you know, they could fill those stadiums on a company that wasn't the NWA and it wasn't the WWF at the time. So just really cool shot and moment in time, but not much else to say about this card. Black Bart. Classic cowboy gimmick that worked for most of the major companies in the 80s. When I see this guy, for whatever reason, I just get sent back to Starrcade 1985, which I like to call Bladecade, due to the fact that, if memory serves, almost every single match was a bloodbath. And this is Black Bart's rookie card, but like many wrestlers, I'm not sure if he's cardboard relevant outside of diehard wrestling card fans, so we'll have to see what happens with his cards in the future. Card number 4, Steven Regal. No, not that Steven Regal. This is Mr. Electricity Steve Regal. I remember him in the AWA teaming with Jimmy Garvin. Always thought he had kind of a cool gimmick, a cool look, kind of a little bit of a knockoff Fabulous Ones look, which, if you guys remember the Fabs, they were super popular. But I remember watching this guy fight the Road Warriors on the AWA VHS tapes, so it sends me back to that time. Gorgeous Gino Hernandez. Cool shot of Gino in his robe here, looking like a big timer. What a story with this guy. If you haven't already, make sure to go check out the Dark Side of the Ring episode about Gino. Just another one of those larger-than-life talents from World Class that unfortunately turned into a tragedy. I was always a huge fan of him, and it's another one of those things that, you know, the most popular wrestlers seem to always live their gimmicks. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Although here, I'm not sure he was the dragon. Here's an interesting card. I actually really like this one just because it's different. Here you have Ricky Steamboat posing with a bunch of trophies. Now, I think we are to believe here that these are his trophies, things that he's won in kayfabe. But this photo could have honestly just been taken at a spot show in the hallway high school, showing off these high school trophies, and they're like, hey, let's get Ricky in front of this. It'd be a cool card. I don't know. Just kind of running with it. The Road Warriors, card number 7. You guys know I love the Road Warriors, but here's one of our first examples of a error card, misnamed card, whatever you want to call it. And trust me, there's way better ones to come. But here, yes, Paul Ellering was considered a member of the Road Warriors since he was their manager. But come on, we want Hawk and we want Animal in the same shot. Clearly not on this card. I'm assuming Ellering is looking at Hawk in this picture, and half of the picture just got cut out. I wouldn't be surprised if the other half of the photo shows up somewhere down the road in this card set that they just repurposed as another card. As most of you know, I'm a huge Road Warriors collector, like I said, but I mainly am only looking for the Road Warriors cards that have both Hawk and Animal on it, or Hawk, Animal, and Ellering. So, not the biggest fan of this card personally. Joe LeDuc. I love this card. I love this guy. It's probably why I like the card. So I may be a little bit biased. If you are unfamiliar with Joe, he's a Canadian wrestler who always had this like rugged man's man lumberjack kind of gimmick. He had a rough and tough brawling style, probably best known for cutting himself on Memphis TV Live.
Jerry Lawler, I'm going to mess up your face, and that's the last match I lost with you, Jerry Lawler.
Of course, he was doing this to prove how just real he was, because that's what you had to do back in the day with pro wrestling, because everybody still thought it was real. But I just love his style. I love this card. Reminds me of those old magazines with the bloody pictures all over the front that we all grew up with. That being said, once again, I'm not sure how cardboard relevant Joe LeDuc is. Hardcore wrestling fans, sure, but he probably won't ever bust out of the mainstream for obvious reasons. Card number 9. Fritz Von Eric. Now, before we get into Fritz Von Eric, I should have said this towards the beginning of the video, but as you can tell, these cards are smaller. That is a standard trading card penny sleeve that this card is in. Also, if you notice, the pictures are not the best quality. I'm not sure if they were just, photocopied off of a 4x6 picture, or if these were taken from magazines, kind of like the 82, 83 All-Stars were. Not sure. I still like the cards, but not the greatest photo quality. Speaking of photo quality, here we've got another card that's so bad it's good. They just cut Fritz out of what appears to be a Von Eric family photo here. Now, I was too young to see Fritz wrestle in person or on TV, but I love wrestling history, so I've gone back and watched a lot of his old work. Clearly the stuff that he was in during this time with World Class, but also some of his other actual in-ring work. I always loved his voice when he would talk and do promos. It was just gravelly and intimidating, especially when he was going back and forth with Ric Flair in their infamous promo.
Gorgeous human being and one of the greatest athletes alive in a cage match in the reunion. Hold it, you moron. Listen to me.
To my knowledge, this is actually his first card ever released. Probably one of the more interesting rookie card photo choices that I could choose from. But hey, I didn't make the card set. Card number 10, Kevin Von Eric. We've got more Von Erics. Barefoot, wrestling, Ted Nugent, rockin', Kevin Von Eric. High flyer of the Von Eric brothers, and the only surviving member, unfortunately. Always enjoyed Kevin's work. Not the greatest Actually, wait a minute. Something looks fishy about this photo. Hang on one second. I bet you this was taken from the same photo if you put this together. Again, as I said, they do like to do a lot of shady stuff, little fishy activity in this card set, but I guess if they're trying to cut costs, they got 2 cards out of this. But this is just the exact stuff I'm talking about that you're going to get with Monty Gum. Card number 11, Kerry Von Eric. Another Von Eric, but wait, look at this photo. I've got to do this. Look at that. You piece all 3 together. That's what they did. They took a picture and just cut it up into 3 cards. So, way to be opportunist, Monty Gum. But we do in fact have that full Von Eric photo, even including Mike Von Eric in this one. Although he doesn't get credited, they just kind of cut up the photo into 3 and they're like, hey, we need Kerry on a card. Mike's in the background. We'll put him on there, but we're not going to give him any credit. Always love Kerry Von Eric. Back to this card. The modern day warrior. Just a great look, great physique. Not the greatest promo, but his in-ring action is fantastic. And again, just the legacy that he was part of with World Class Championship Wrestling. It won't ever get out of the minds of us diehard wrestling fans. Card number 12, Baron Von Ratchke. Now this looks a little bit more like a wrestling card compared to some of the cut-up Von Eric photos that we just looked at. Nothing really spectacular or noteworthy about this card, though. Just, I remember him from the AWA days growing up watching him. That's about it. Sgt Slaughter, Bloody Sarge, front and center, maggot. While there isn't anything special about this card, I do have to say I love when they use the bloody pictures. Once again, it just takes me back to those magazine days when the covers always had these guys bleeding all over the place, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to buy this. It's just always something that made me intrigued and made me want to buy and look more into it. I don't know. I had the same kind of thing with like ECW and XPW and CZW and the Japanese deathmatch promotions. I still think finding interesting, like these ultra-violent, bloody pictures kind of sell you to get into that. And even though sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of the actual wrestling, it's just intriguing to me for some reason. So, not sorry about getting too far off topic here looking at this card. Not anything else to talk about on this card other than just a really cool photo used. Card number 14, Magnificent Morocco. Don Morocco. An okay action shot here again. At least they got a decent picture to use. But nothing to write home about this specific card. I was always a fan of Don Morocco throughout his career, growing up watching him no matter what organization he was in. But again, nothing else standing out. Card number 15, Bobby Jaggers. Jaggers is probably best known for his work in the Portland territory, as well as Jim Crockett Promotions NWA, where he teamed with Dutch Mantel. I was always a fan of his cowboy gimmick, but as most of you know, I think cowboy gimmicks are just timeless in wrestling. Jaggers was the original Hangman, not Hangman Page. He's also pretty notable for a gnarly, super scarred up forehead. Also, interesting note, he passed away in 2012 after an issue related to Hep C. With a forehead like that, working in the territories, you have to think that somehow, possibly he passed it to others or people passed it to him. I hate to talk about that stuff because I absolutely love blood in wrestling and storytelling and realism component in wrestling. But back then, it was just a different time. But something that just came to mind as I was looking at this. But again, huge fan of Bobby Jaggers. Card number 16, Wahoo McDaniel. Really cool photo used here. Very fitting for Wahoo. When you think Wahoo McDaniel, this is kind of what you think of. Just the kind of card you'd expect. If you're a wrestling fan or you know wrestling history, you know Wahoo McDaniel. I personally was never the biggest fan. However, I did respect the toughness that he displayed and the realism that he would display in the ring. Again, kind of got to wonder, is this cardboard relevant? Not sure. Card number 17, Great Kabuki and Sunshine. This is actually a double rookie card, which is interesting. This is the first card for Kabuki and Sunshine. I was also intrigued with Kabuki growing up. I would always see his pictures in books and magazines. And I think this picture was taken in like probably 85 or 86. I think Sunshine was managing Kabuki at the time, if I remember right. It was like a brief stint when they were both actually baby faces. So, again, a really cool rookie card featuring two talents. Kind of a great time capsule for a very brief period of a storyline in World Class Championship Wrestling. Card number 18, the Iron Sheik. Really cool shot of Sheiky Baby posing in front of the flag. Always loved to root against the Sheik growing up. He was really successful at what he was doing because I wanted to root against him, so he's a heel. And I love his Twitter account. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. He has a really hilarious Twitter account. But other than that, just a cool card, cool shot, nothing else really noteworthy. Card number 19, Greg the Hammer Valentine. Great shot of Greg here with his robe and that old school Intercontinental title. You got Jimmy Hart doing what Jimmy Hart does, floating around in the background, trying to get into everything you can possibly get involved in, being here, there, and everywhere. I always loved Greg Valentine for some reason. Both as a kid and as an adult, I just loved his gimmick and his style. So for me, this is a really cool card, especially with that old school Intercontinental belt. And the last card on part 1 of the 1986 Monty Gum Wrestling Star set, card number 20, Rick Martel. I think this is when he was in the AWA, maybe like 86, 87, when he's transitioning to the WWF. So I'm guessing this photo was possibly before that. The set came out in 86. I'm not sure. A little bit confusing. But a decent shot. I always loved Martel when he was in the AWA. My favorite time of the career, though, was when he was the heel model with the arrogance can. I just can't get enough of that gimmick. But as a side note, his late 90s run in WCW, very underrated. Probably like physically looking the best he's ever looked. And he didn't have any more gimmicks at that time. He was kind of just back to the regular Rick Martel. So, interesting guy. It'd be interesting to see where his cards kind of go in the future. If hardcore wrestling fans are going to gravitate to them, or if he's just going to be, not getting much into that mainstream, as I've talked about before with some of these other cards, whether he's cardboard relevant or not. So, it'll be fun to see. So, that's the end of part 1 of the 1986 Monty Gum Wrestling Star set. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like. Hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for part 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to do a 5-part series, 20 cards each series. Thanks for checking out the videos. Hit the videos on the screen for more great wrestling card content. I'll see you there.